A homeless girl found the millionaire's son who had been missing for months, and what he did to reward her shocked everyone. Anna Claire was all too familiar with cold sidewalks, shelterless dawns, and the hurried pace of those who pretend not to see. At just 16, she had learned early that the city never stops to look at someone like her. She spent her days begging for coins at the traffic lights in Aspen Heights, dreaming of a tomorrow that wouldn't bring rain or hunger. The mountains were beautiful for those with money to appreciate, but for her, it was just a frozen stage where she played the role of the invisible one. Tourists took photos of charming chalets while she held out her hand, and the response was almost always the same: averted gazes, hurried steps, silence. She never imagined that an impulsive gesture would lead her to the center of a story that the entire country would come to follow. But on that June afternoon, when the wind cut her skin and her stomach ached with emptiness, destiny knocked in a way she never expected. She was standing in front of a bakery, smelling the fresh bread that only intensified her hunger, when she saw strange movement across the street. A huge mansion surrounded by high walls and silently. Blinking cameras seemed like a world apart. But at that moment something was different. A woman in uniform rushed out the gate, shouting into her phone, gesticulating angrily. Other staff members gathered at the entrance, confused, while a man in a suit tried to calm the situation. Anna observed everything from a distance, with the curiosity of someone with nothing to lose. The woman threw her apron on the ground and got into a car that sped off. One less employee, a rare opportunity. Something inside her, a voice that mixed desperation and courage, whispered that this was the moment. She crossed the street slowly, tidied her hair as best she could, and took a deep breath before ringing the gate's doorbell. The intercom crackled. A male voice, deep and impatient, asked who it was. Anna swallowed hard and replied that she was looking for work, that she had experience with cleaning, that she could help. There was a long pause. She almost gave up, but then the voice returned, asking her to wait. Minutes later, the gate opened with a metallic creak, and a middle-aged man with a grey mustache and a tired expression appeared. It was the doorman, Mr. Jenkins, who looked her up and down suspiciously. "Do you have references, girl?" he asked, crossing his arms. Anna felt her heart race. She had no references. She had nothing. But she had something that desperation teaches, the ability to improvise with sincerity. "No, sir, I don't, but I know how to work. I know how to clean, organize, do whatever needs to be done. I saw the lady leave in a hurry and thought maybe you needed someone. I just want a chance." Mr. Jenkins sighed, looking back as if expecting invisible orders. The confusion inside was too great to question details. The lady of the house was furious, the master was traveling, and the house couldn't be left unattended. "All right, but it's temporary, you hear, until we find someone permanent. And if you mess up, you're out immediately." Anna nodded so hard she almost lost her balance. Mr. Jenkins opened the gate completely and signaled for her to enter. She stepped into that garden as if stepping onto another planet. Clipped grass, colorful flowers, a stone fountain in the center. It was all so different from the dirty streets where she slept that for a moment she even forgot her hunger. Thus Anna came to occupy a small and almost invisible place in the routine of the Miller family mansion. A home of luxury, silence, and strict rules. In the first few days, she realized that this was no ordinary place. It wasn't just the size of the house or the number of rooms. It was the atmosphere. There was something dense in the air, as if everyone was walking on eggshells, avoiding making noise, avoiding questions. The lady of the house, Sylvia, was a woman of rigid beauty, impeccable posture, and an empty smile. She wore expensive clothes, always combining neutral colors, and her blonde hair was immaculately styled. But her eyes were cold, almost lifeless. She treated employees like disposable pieces in a carefully constructed play. She never yelled, but her words cut like sharp blades. A single glance was enough to make anyone nervous. Anna was introduced to the other staff members. Mrs. Lewis, the cook, was a robust woman with a wide smile who immediately welcomed her with a plate of food. Marcia, the nanny, was young, perhaps in her early 20s, timid and always with red eyes, as if she had recently cried. And there was Mr. Arthur, the driver, a silent, white-haired black man with an attentive gaze that seemed to see beyond appearances. High on the hill, amidst spacious corridors, pristine furniture, and staff who avoided speaking loudly, Anna began to notice that something here didn't fit. There were whispered meetings between Sylvia and unknown people who entered through the back door. There were phone calls the lady of the house took locked in her office, always in a low voice, always tense. And there was the second floor. That place was practically forbidden. Only Sylvia and Marcia went up, frequently. The other staff avoided even looking at the stairs. One morning, while sweeping the ground floor corridor, Anna heard a sound coming from upstairs. It was crying, muffled, contained, as if someone was trying to silence the pain with thick walls. She stopped, the broom handle firm in her hands, and looked up. Mrs. Lewis passed her carrying a tray and murmured softly, without looking, "Don't get too curious, girl. Here, it's best to do your work and be done with it." But Anna couldn't ignore it. That crying echoed within her, stirring something deep she couldn't explain. In the following days, she began to pay attention to every detail. Marcia went up and down the stairs with bottles, diapers, baby clothes, always in a hurry, always looking scared. Sylvia watched her closely, giving strict orders about schedules, feeding, bathing. Everything had to be exactly as she commanded. One afternoon, Anna was organizing the laundry room when Marcia entered carrying a basket full of small clothes. The nanny looked exhausted, with deep dark circles under her eyes and trembling hands. Anna approached and offered help. Marcia hesitated but eventually accepted. As they sorted the clothes, Anna ventured a question. "How long have you worked here?" Marcia took a while to answer, as if weighing each word. "About 8 months. I started when the mistress returned from her trip." "And the baby? Is it hers?" The silence that followed was heavy. Marcia looked around, checking if they were alone, and then whispered, "That's what she says, but I never saw her pregnant. No one here did. She traveled and came back with him." Anna felt a chill run down her spine. There was something very wrong with that story, but she didn't know what it was yet. Marcia noticed her gaze and quickly changed the subject, visibly afraid of having said too much. But the seed of doubt had already been planted. A few days later, Anna was allowed to quickly clean the second-floor nursery while Marcia was away for a few minutes. Her heart pounded when she climbed those stairs for the first time. The upstairs corridor was silent, with closed doors and paintings on the walls. At the end of the corridor, a half-open door. She approached slowly, pushing the door gently. The room was beautiful, sunny and decorated with expensive furniture. Wallpaper with childish designs, a fluffy rug, shelves full of new toys still in their packaging. But there was something strange about the energy of the room. It was as if all that beauty was a mask covering something dark. In the crib, a baby less than a year old watched her with big eyes and a tired expression. He didn't cry, didn't move much, he just looked as if he had already given up asking for attention. Anna approached slowly without making a sound. She stood there, looking at that faded little face, and felt an immediate connection. She couldn't explain it, but it was as if she already knew him from somewhere. She extended her hand and lightly touched his little arm. The baby reacted, wiggling his tiny fingers, and then did something that completely surprised her. He smiled, a shy but genuine smile that illuminated that pale little face for a brief moment. That smile was the beginning of everything. Anna felt tears fill her eyes without fully understanding why. There was something about that tiny being that moved her in an inexplicable way. She stayed there for a few minutes, talking softly to him, making faces, watching those little eyes finally gain a different sparkle. But the moment was interrupted by hurried footsteps on the stairs. Marcia entered, panting with a panicked look. "You have to get out of here now. The mistress is coming back." Anna obeyed immediately, but before leaving, she looked at the baby one last time. He followed her with his eyes until she disappeared through the door. She rushed downstairs, returned to the laundry room, but couldn't get that image out of her head. Something was profoundly wrong there. A baby of that age should be cheerful, active, noisy, but this one was subdued, as if something drained his energy. In the following days, Anna began to observe everything more carefully. She noticed that Sylvia went up to the room several times a day, always with a bottle in her hands, always looking irritated. The baby never made a sound when she was there. It was as if he was afraid. When Marcia was alone with him, the nanny tried to cheer him up, sang softly, but he reacted little. However, on the rare occasions when Anna passed near the room and he saw her, something changed. He moved more, tried to smile, reached out his little arms. One afternoon, while organizing a toy cabinet in the upstairs hallway, Anna found an old teddy bear hidden at the bottom of a box. It was somewhat worn, unlike the new and untouched toys that filled the shelves. But what caught her attention was the name embroidered on the bear's chest, Mikey. Anna stopped, holding the toy in her hands. That reminded her of something. Weeks earlier, when she was still on the streets, she had seen a crumpled poster glued to a lamppost in the city centre. She hadn't paid much attention at the time. She was too busy trying to survive. But now, holding that bear, the memory returned vividly. It was a poster of a missing baby. There was a photo, a reward offered, an appeal from a desperate father. And the name. The name was Michael. Her heart pounded. It could be a coincidence. Michael was a common name, after all, but something inside her screamed that it wasn't. She quickly put the bear back in the box, her hands trembling. She needed to find out more. She needed to be sure. But how? She was just a temporary employee with no access to anything, no power to investigate. If she asked too many questions, she would be expelled immediately or worse. That night, Anna could barely sleep in the tiny room she shared with Mrs. Lewis in the back of the mansion. Her mind spun ceaselessly, building and dismantling theories. What if that baby was really the Michael from the poster? What if Sylvia had taken him somehow? But how? Why? Nothing made sense yet, but the unease grew like a storm. The next day, Anna decided to be bolder. While cleaning, she passed Sylvia's office and saw that the door was ajar. The lady of the house had gone out for a meeting in the city. It was a rare opportunity. She looked around, made sure she was alone, and quickly entered. The room was luxurious, with a huge dark wooden desk, shelves full of books, and papers organized in elegant folders. She didn't know exactly what she was looking for, but she had to try. She opened some drawers carefully, moving as little as possible so as not to leave traces. Financial documents, contracts, formal letters, nothing that stood out. But then, in a deeper drawer, she found a yellowed envelope. Inside, old photographs. She flipped through them quickly, feeling the adrenaline rise. They were photos of Sylvia on trips, at parties, always impeccable, always smiling that fake smile. But one photo made her stop. It was Sylvia holding a baby. Only the date noted on the back indicated that it had been taken over a year ago, even before she supposedly adopted the child. Anna felt her legs weaken. That didn't make sense. The chronology was all wrong. She put everything back as best she could and left the office as quickly as possible, her heart almost leaping from her mouth. She needed to talk to someone, but who? Marcia was too terrified. Mrs. Lewis avoided problems. Mr. Jenkins was loyal to the mistress. Only Mr. Arthur remained. She waited for the right moment. One afternoon, when the driver was washing the car in the garage, Anna approached with some excuse and started talking. Mr. Arthur was a man of few words, but with attentive eyes. He watched her as she skirted the subject, until she finally asked directly, "What's making you so nervous, girl?" Anna took a deep breath. She couldn't tell him everything, but she could test the waters. "Mr. Arthur, do you know the family's history? Where did the baby come from?" The driver stopped scrubbing the car and looked at her seriously. He took so long to answer that Anna thought he would ignore her. But then he spoke, his voice low and careful. "There are things here that are best not to meddle with, Anna Claire. But if you're noticing what I think you are, be very careful. This house holds secrets that can be dangerous." "And the baby?" she insisted. "Is he really hers?" Mr. Arthur sighed deeply, looking around before continuing. "I've worked here for 15 years. I've seen a lot. And I'll tell you one thing, I never saw the mistress pregnant. She traveled for months and came back with this child. She said she had adopted him abroad, that all the papers were in order. But I have eyes, girl. And I have ears. I've heard arguments, strange phone calls, people coming and going who shouldn't be here. Anna felt a chill. Her suspicions were being confirmed, but now fear also grew. If Sylvia was capable of what she imagined, then she was capable of anything to protect her secret. "What do I do?" Anna asked, her voice almost disappearing. Mr. Arthur placed his hand on her shoulder, a paternal and comforting gesture. "Wait for the right moment. The master is returning. He's been out of the country looking for his disappeared son. When he arrives, things will change. But until then, don't do anything to draw attention, just observe, and if you need me, you can count on me." Anna nodded, feeling a mix of relief and tension. She was no longer alone in this. She had an ally. But she also knew that time was running out. Every day that passed, the baby seemed weaker, more distant. She needed to act soon. But how? That night, lying in the dark, Anna thought about everything she had discovered so far. The bear with the name Mikey. The photo with the wrong date. Sylvia's strange behavior. The disappearance of Henry Miller's son reported months ago. Everything was starting to form a terrifying puzzle, but pieces were still missing, pieces she would have to find before it was too late. And while the mansion slept in its heavy silence, Anna made a promise to herself, no matter the risk, no matter the fear, she would discover the truth. For that baby, for herself, and for all the people who, like her, had always been too invisible to be heard. The days following that brought silent observation and growing tension. Anna Claire learned to move through the mansion like a shadow, invisible enough not to attract attention, but attentive enough to catch every suspicious detail. The house's routine followed its artificial rhythm of perfection, but beneath that polished surface, she began to see increasingly larger cracks. Sylvia maintained her untouchable mistress persona, always impeccable in her designer clothes and calculated behavior. But Anna noticed that there were moments when the mask slipped. When the phone rang and she saw the number on the screen, her face contorted into an expression of controlled panic. When she went up to the baby's room, her steps were too hurried, as if she were fleeing from something invisible. And there were the medications. Anna had started to notice the bottles appearing in the mistress's bathroom trash. Complicated names, tiny print, red warnings. One morning, while emptying the trash can on the second floor, Anna picked up one of the empty bottles and read the label carefully. It was a strong sedative, a type of medication she had seen in the hands of people on the streets, people who used it to escape reality. But why would a rich woman like Sylvia have this? And more importantly, why was the bottle empty so quickly? She put the packaging in her apron pocket, determined to show Mr. Arthur later. Meanwhile, Marcia was increasingly nervous. The nanny barely ate, had lost weight, and her eyes were always red and swollen. Anna tried to talk to her whenever they could be alone, but Marcia was too afraid to speak openly. Even so, in small fragments of conversation, she revealed things. "She doesn't let me take proper care of him," Marcia confessed one afternoon, while folding diapers in the laundry room. "I'm there all day, but she does everything. She gives the bottles, she chooses his clothes, she decides when he can leave the crib. I'm just there to watch, to make sure he doesn't cry loudly and bother her." "But why?" Anna asked, knowing the answer would be incomplete, but needing to hear. Marcia looked at the door, making sure they were alone. "I think she's afraid someone will hear. Someone will find out. Sometimes the baby wakes up in the middle of the night crying, and she rushes there with a bottle I didn't prepare. He drinks it and falls asleep immediately. It's strange, Anna. Babies don't fall asleep that fast. It's like he's always too tired." A shiver ran down Anna's spine. She thought of the sedative bottle she had saved. Could it be possible? Was Sylvia giving that to the baby? The idea was too monstrous, but at the same time, it made terrible sense. A drugged baby doesn't cry, doesn't attract attention, doesn't bother anyone, and, most importantly, doesn't allow anyone to realize something is wrong. "Have you ever thought about leaving?" Anna asked, looking into Marcia's tired eyes. The nanny shook her head sadly. And where would I go? I need this job, Anna. I have a sick mother who depends on me. If I leave, who will take care of her? And besides, I'm afraid of what might happen if I talk too much. The mistress has influence. She has money. She has power. I'm nobody. Who will believe me? Those words echoed in Anna's head for hours. She understood perfectly. That was exactly how the world worked. The powerful could do whatever they wanted, while the invisible could only watch and keep silent. But this time, she wouldn't keep silent. She couldn't. That baby deserved someone to fight for him, even if it was a street girl with no name and no future. It was during a clean-up in the back storage room that Anna found something that would change everything. The storage room was a forgotten space, full of dusty boxes, old furniture, and seemingly unimportant objects. She was cleaning the shelves when a cardboard box fell, spilling its contents onto the floor. Torn papers, old photographs, objects of no apparent significance. She started gathering everything, but then a photograph caught her attention. It was a somewhat faded image, with colors bleached by time. It showed a baby in the lap of a woman Anna didn't know. The woman was young, with dark hair and sad eyes, and held the baby with such tenderness that the scene seemed almost sacred. Anna turned the photo over and saw a date written on the back, along with some handwritten words almost illegible. Michael, 3 months with eternal love. Her heart pounded. Michael. It was him. It had to be. And the date noted was months before Sylvia supposedly adopted the child. That meant the baby already existed, already had a history, already had someone who loved him. But then what had happened? Who was that woman in the photo? And how had the baby ended up in Sylvia's hands? Anna put the photograph inside her apron, her hands trembling with nervousness and adrenaline. She needed to show it to someone, but to whom? Mr. Arthur had said to wait for the right moment, to wait for the master's return. But how much longer? The baby was getting weaker every day. She saw in his little eyes a sadness that was unnatural for such a small child. He was giving up. And if she waited too long, it might be too late. That night, Anna looked for Mr. Arthur in the garage. The driver was checking the car's oil when she arrived, breathless. He immediately realized something had happened and signaled for her to calm down and speak softly. "What is it, girl?" Anna showed him the photograph, her hands still trembling. Mr. Arthur took the image and studied it under the dim garage light. His face, normally serene, tensed. "Where did you find this?" "In the storage room. It was in an old box along with other things. Mr. Arthur, this date is from before she said she adopted the baby, and it has the name Michael. It's the master's son's name, isn't it?" The driver nodded slowly, the weight of the revelation visible in his eyes. "It is. The master's boy disappeared 7 months ago. It was a case that stirred the whole country. Henry Miller, one of the richest men in America, saw his son vanish without a trace. The police investigated, the media covered it, but nothing was found. He traveled the world searching, spent fortunes on private investigators, and now he's returning, they say without hope, just to try to move on." "And the mistress?" Anna asked, her voice trembling. "Was she here when the baby disappeared?" Mr. Arthur paused for a long time before answering, as if weighing the importance of his words. "She was, but she traveled soon after, said she needed to get away, that she couldn't bear the pain of seeing Henry suffer. She was away for 4 months. When she returned, she brought the baby who is upstairs and said she had adopted him abroad. The papers were all in order, signed by expensive lawyers. Henry accepted the story because he was too broken to question. And because, deep down, I think she knew he wouldn't notice the details." Anna felt her stomach churn. The truth was beginning to reveal itself in a way that was both obvious and shocking. Sylvia hadn't adopted any baby. She had kept her own stepson. But why? What did she gain from it? And how had she managed to make everyone believe the farce? "The master doesn't even suspect?" Anna asked, incredulous. Mr. Arthur shook his head sadly. "Henry is destroyed, girl. He lost his son, lost his joy, lost his will to live. When he came back and saw that his wife had brought a baby home, he barely looked. I think he was afraid of getting attached, of suffering again. And Sylvia has always been clever. She keeps the boy hidden, always with an excuse, always with a reason for Henry not to go upstairs. She says the baby is fragile, needs special care, can't be disturbed. And he believes it because he wants to believe, because it's easier than facing the truth. But now he's coming back, Anna said, feeling a mix of hope and fear. What if he sees the baby up close? What if he realizes? Mr. Arthur looked at her intensely. That's why you need to have everything ready, girl. Proof, evidence. It can't just be a suspicion. It has to be something he can't ignore. And when the moment comes, you'll need courage to put all of this into his hands, because Sylvia will fight like a beast to protect her secret. Anna nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility fall upon her shoulders. She was just a street girl, without formal education, without power, without anything. But she had something Sylvia would never have, the truth. And the truth, however frightening, was the only weapon she possessed. In the following days, Anna intensified her observations. She wrote everything down on small pieces of paper that she hid in her apron pocket. Times when Sylvia went up to the room, the baby's behavior after feedings, medication bottles found in the trash, the mistress's strange reactions when someone mentioned Henry's disappeared son. Every detail was a piece of the puzzle, and Anna was assembling this puzzle with patience and determination. One afternoon, while cleaning the second-floor bathroom, Anna heard voices coming from the next room. It was Sylvia on the phone, her tone of voice altered and nervous. Anna approached the door carefully and pressed her ear against it, trying to catch what was being said. "I've already told you everything is under control," Sylvia said, her voice tense. "The papers are perfect. No one will find out anything. And even if they suspect, they can't prove it. The boy is registered as my adopted son. All the documents were made by professionals. There's no way to trace it." There was a pause while the person on the other end of the line spoke. Then Sylvia continued, even more irritated. "I don't care what you think. I paid for this service precisely so it would be foolproof. And as for Henry, he doesn't even look at the baby. He's so broken that he accepts anything I say. The problem is this new employee, the girl from the street. She stares too much, asks too many questions. I'll have to get rid of her soon." Anna felt her blood run cold. Sylvia was talking about her, and she was planning to get rid of her. She needed to act fast before it was too late. She carefully moved away from the door and finished her work in a hurry, her heart beating so hard it felt like everyone could hear it. When she went downstairs, she immediately looked for Mr. Arthur, but the driver wasn't there. He had gone out to get something in the city. Anna felt alone and exposed, as if Sylvia could appear at any moment and accuse her of spying. She decided to finish the day normally without doing anything, to attract attention, but at the first opportunity she would tell the driver everything. At night, after all the employees had retired, Anna lay on her narrow bed in the back room, but sleep wouldn't come. She thought about the baby upstairs, alone in that luxurious but suffocating room. She thought about Henry Miller, a father who had lost his son and didn't even know he was there, just a few feet away. She thought about Sylvia, a woman capable of doing something so cruel for reasons Anna still couldn't fully comprehend. Why would she do this? Why pretend an adoption when she was actually hiding her own stepson? There was something that still didn't fit, a hidden motive that Anna needed to discover. Perhaps it was for money, perhaps for power, or perhaps for something even darker, something she couldn't even imagine. The next morning, Anna woke up with Mrs. Lewis shaking her. The cook's face was red and her eyes wide. "Wake up, girl. There's big trouble in the house. The mistress is furious." Anna jumped up, her heart already racing. What had happened? Had Sylvia discovered she was investigating? She dressed quickly and ran to the kitchen, where she found the other employees gathered, all with expressions of fear and confusion. Mr. Jenkins was in the center, explaining the situation. The master came back early, arrived in the middle of the night without warning, and when he entered the house, he heard the baby crying upstairs. He went up to see, and the mistress almost had a fit. Now she's up there trying to convince him that everything is fine, but he's suspicious. I've never seen him so tense. Anna felt a mix of fear and hope. Henry was home, and he had heard the baby. Perhaps this was the moment Mr. Arthur had spoken of, the right moment. But was she prepared? Did she have enough evidence? The photograph, the medication bottles, her notes. Was it enough to convince a powerful man that his wife was hiding a monstrous secret? Mr. Arthur entered the kitchen at that moment, his face serious. He looked directly at Anna and gave a discreet nod. She understood. It was time. Throughout the day, the mansion remained on high alert. Sylvia was even more tense than usual, giving contradictory orders, arguing with employees, locking herself in her office to make phone calls. Henry, for his part, barely appeared. He stayed locked in his room on the first floor, speaking to no one. But Anna noticed that something had changed. He had heard the baby's cry, and that sound had awakened something in him, some memory, some paternal instinct that had not been completely destroyed by pain. In the afternoon, Anna got her chance. Sylvia had gone out to take care of something urgent in the city, and Henry finally left his room. She saw him pass through the corridor. A tall man with broad shoulders but a slumped posture, as if carrying the weight of the world. His hair was graying at the temples, his face marked by lines of suffering. He was heading towards the office when Anna, gathering all the courage she had, approached him. "Mr. Miller," she called, her voice trembling but firm. He stopped and looked at her in surprise. He probably didn't even know who she was, just another invisible employee in his house full of invisible employees. "Yes," he replied, his voice deep and tired. Anna took a deep breath. It was now or never. "I need to talk to you, sir. It's about the baby. It's important." Henry frowned, confused and a little irritated. "The baby my wife adopted, what about him?" Anna looked around, making sure they were alone. Then she took the bravest step of her life. She extended her hand and offered him the photograph she had found, along with one of the medication packages and some of her notes. "Please, sir, just look at this, and then go upstairs to see the baby. Up close, look closely at him, and then you will understand." Henry took the objects reluctantly, still confused. He looked at the photograph, at the medication, at the notes. His expression gradually changed from irritation to confusion, and then to something deeper, something that seemed a mixture of horror and impossible hope. "Where did you get this?" he managed to ask, his voice hoarse. "In the storage room, and in the trash, and by observing." "Sir, I know it sounds crazy, but you need to see. You need to look at that baby and trust your heart, because mothers can lie, documents can be forged, but a father recognizes his own child." The words came out of Anna with a conviction she didn't even know she possessed. Henry stood there holding those objects, his face pale, his eyes shining with unshed tears. And then, without saying anything else, he went up the stairs. Anna stayed downstairs, her legs trembling, praying that she hadn't made the biggest mistake of her life. The silence that followed was deafening. Anna stood at the foot of the stairs, her heart beating so hard it felt like it would leap from her mouth. Upstairs, on the second floor, Henry Miller was about to discover a truth that could destroy or rebuild his life. She didn't know what his reaction would be, but she knew there was no turning back. The truth had been set in motion, and now all that remained was to wait. The minutes passed slowly, each second feeling like an eternity. Anna heard footsteps upstairs, a door opening, muffled voices. Marcia must have been there, surprised by the master's unexpected presence. The baby was awake. Anna knew this because moments earlier she had heard a faint cry coming from above. And now Henry was there, finally looking at the child Sylvia had kept hidden, as if he were a shameful secret. Mrs. Lewis appeared in the kitchen, drying her, hands on her apron, and seeing Anna standing there all tense, quietly asked what was happening. Anna couldn't answer. She had a lump in her throat that prevented words from coming out. The cook realized that something very serious was unfolding, and with the wisdom of someone who had seen a lot in life, simply stood there beside the girl, in silent solidarity. Then they heard it. A cry. It wasn't of pain or anger, but of something much deeper. It was the cry of a man who had just rediscovered something he believed lost forever. It was the cry of a father recognizing his son. Anna ran upstairs, followed by Mrs. Lewis and moments later by Mr. Arthur, who appeared from the garage. When they reached the second floor, they found the nursery door wide open. Henry was kneeling beside the crib, holding the baby in his arms with such strength and at the same time with such care that the scene seemed straight out of a movie. Tears streamed down his face, wetting the baby's little face, who, for the first time in months, seemed truly alive. His little eyes sparkled, his tiny arms moved, and he made those sounds babies make when they are happy. Michael had recognized his father, and the father had recognized his son. Marcia was leaning against the wall, crying too, her hands covering her mouth. She knew too. Deep down she had always known. But fear had prevented her from acting, from speaking, from doing anything, and now, seeing that scene, she felt relief and guilt at the same time. Henry looked at Anna with red, swollen eyes, but also with a gratitude so profound it was almost palpable. "How?" he managed to ask, his voice choked. "How did you know?" Anna took a step forward, feeling her own tears stream down. "I wasn't sure, sir, but something inside me screamed that this baby was special, that he wasn't just another child. I started to notice the strange things, the behaviors, the hidden objects, and the more I looked, the more I found. The bear with his name, the photo with the wrong date, the medications that don't make sense for a healthy baby. Everything pointed to a truth no one wanted to see." Henry pressed his son against his chest, as if afraid someone would come and tear him from his arms again. Michael, feeling his father's warmth and love, finally relaxed completely. It was as if all the weight he carried had been lifted from his tiny shoulders. "Where is Sylvia?" Henry asked, and this time his voice had a different tone. It was no longer the voice of the broken man who had come home the night before. It was the voice of someone who had just discovered he had been betrayed in the worst possible way, and who now sought answers and justice. Mr. Arthur stepped forward. "She left about an hour ago, Master. She went to take care of something urgent in the city, that's what she said. But I have a feeling she noticed something was different. When you arrived in the middle of the night, she became very nervous." Henry nodded, his jaw clenched. He carefully handed the baby to Marcia, who received him with all the affection in the world and then stood up. He was a transformed man. The pain and despair he had carried for months had been replaced by an iron determination. "Gather all the staff in the living room. Now, and when Sylvia returns, I want to know immediately." Everyone obeyed without questioning. Half an hour later, the entire house was gathered in the spacious living room. Mr. Jenkins, Mrs. Lewis, Mr. Arthur, Marcia with Michael in her arms, Anna, and even the gardener who only worked twice a week and happened to be there that day. Henry stood before everyone, his face still marked by tears, but also by contained anger. "I need all of you to know the truth," he began, his voice firm. "The baby in Marcia's arms is not a child adopted by Sylvia. He is my son, Michael, who disappeared 7 months ago and whom we believed we would never see again. My wife, for reasons I still don't fully comprehend, hid my own son from me. She forged documents, created an elaborate story, and for all these months kept him imprisoned here, away from me, while I suffered believing he was lost forever." A heavy silence fell upon the room. Some employees seemed shocked. Others seemed only to confirm suspicions they already had. Mrs. Lewis made the sign of the cross, murmuring a prayer. Mr. Jenkins' face was white as paper. "I didn't know anything, sir," the doorman said quickly, fear evident in his voice. "She said she had adopted the child, showed the papers. Everything seemed in order. I would never have imagined that." Henry raised his hand, interrupting him. "I'm not accusing anyone here except her, but I need to know if anyone else knew anything, saw anything, heard anything that can help me understand how this happened and how long she planned this." It was Marcia who spoke first, her voice trembling but determined. "Sir, I started working here when the mistress returned from her trip with the baby. From the first day I found it strange. She didn't act like a mother. She acted like someone who was guarding something precious but inconvenient. She kept the baby isolated, gave him medications I knew were not appropriate, and whenever I asked about the adoption story, she changed the subject or threatened me. I was too afraid to speak. I have a family that depends on my salary, but I swear I was suffering seeing that child waste away day after day. He wasn't happy. He wasn't cared for with love. He was just kept alive. Tears streamed down Marcia's face as she spoke, and Michael, as if understanding they were talking about him, began to whimper softly. She cradled him with affection, and he calmed down immediately. Henry approached her and gently touched the nanny's shoulder. "You are not to blame. None of you are. She is manipulative, powerful, and knew exactly how to control everyone around her. But now it's over. Now my son is back, and I will ensure she pays for everything she did." It was at that moment that they heard the sound of the car entering the garage. Sylvia had returned. The tension in the room instantly increased. Henry signaled for everyone to stay where they were and went to the entrance hall waiting. Anna felt her heart race again. This was the moment of confrontation, and she didn't know what to expect. Sylvia entered through the door with her shopping bags, her face still bearing that expression of superiority she always wore. But when she saw Henry standing there, waiting for her, her mask slipped for a fraction of a second. She knew. Somehow she knew it was over. "Henry," she said, trying to sound casual but failing miserably. "You're home. I thought you were still resting." He didn't answer immediately. He just looked at her with an intensity that made the air feel heavier. Then, in a dangerously calm voice, he said just 3 words. "I found Michael." The effect was immediate. Sylvia dropped her bags to the floor, her face turning completely white. She tried to speak, but no sound came out. She tried again, and this time the words came, but they were weak, desperate. "Henry, I can explain." "Explain?" He took a step forward, anger now clearly showing. "Explain how you hid my son from me for 7 months. Explain how you let me suffer, search the whole world, spend fortunes, lose sleep while he was here all along. Explain how you forged documents, invented an adoption story, and kept an innocent child drugged and isolated just to keep your secret. Is that what you want to explain?" Sylvia recoiled, leaning against the wall. Her hands trembled, and she seemed to have aged 10 years in seconds. "It wasn't like that. You don't understand. I did it for us. For our family." "For our family?" Henry's voice rose for the first time, echoing through the mansion walls. "You destroyed our family. You made me believe my son was dead, or worse, in the hands of someone who could be hurting him. And all this time you kept him here, as if he were a trophy, a mere object." Sylvia began to cry, but they were tears that brought no empathy. They were tears of someone caught, someone who had lost the game. "I loved you, Henry, but you only had eyes for that baby. After he was born, you forgot I existed. I wasn't important anymore. I was just the woman who was there, while he was the center of everything. And when the opportunity arose to make him disappear, I thought you would finally see me again. But you didn't. You became even worse, even more distant, so I brought him back, but this time under my control. As my adopted son, not as the heir who stole all your attention." The silence that followed that confession was absolute. Henry stared at her as if he were seeing a monster, not the woman he had married. Her words revealed a truth even darker than he had imagined. She hadn't kidnapped his son for money or power. She had done it out of jealousy, out of selfishness, because she couldn't bear to share her husband's attention with an innocent child. "Are you saying you made my son disappear because you were jealous?" Henry asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "That you paid someone to take him, caused despair in an entire family, mobilized the police, the media, the entire country, just because you felt neglected?" Sylvia didn't answer. Her head was bowed, her shoulders slumped. There was nothing more to say. The truth was exposed in all its cruelty. Henry turned to Mr. Arthur. "Call the police now." "No," Sylvia screamed, taking a step forward. "Please, Henry, I'll leave. I'll disappear from your life. You'll never see me again. But don't turn me over to the police. I won't survive there." He looked at her without any pity. "You didn't care if our son would survive under your care. Why should I care about you?" Mr. Arthur already had the phone in his hand, dialing. Sylvia tried to run, but Mr. Jenkins blocked the exit. She was trapped, not physically, but by the very web of lies she had woven. There was nowhere to run, no way to undo what she had done. When the police arrived 30 minutes, Later, the scene at the mansion was one of controlled chaos. Sylvia was sitting in an armchair, her face in her hands, sobbing. Henry was holding Michael in his arms, refusing to let him go for even a second. The police officers, 2 men and a woman in uniform, listened to the story with increasingly shocked expressions. They took the photograph Anna had found, the medication bottles, the notes, the forged documents Henry had located in Sylvia's office. Everything would be used as evidence of what she had done. The police officer, a woman with short hair and a firm gaze, approached Anna. "Was it you who discovered all this?" Anna nodded, still processing everything that was happening. "You saved this baby," the officer said sincerely, "and you brought justice. It's not easy to have the courage to confront powerful people. You should be proud." Anna didn't feel proud. She felt exhausted, emotionally drained. But looking at Michael in his father's arms, seeing that genuine smile he now displayed, something inside her calmed. She had done the right thing, and that was what mattered. Sylvia was led away in handcuffs, still crying, still trying to speak, but no one was listening to her anymore. The mansion gate closed behind the police car, and for the first time in months the house breathed a sigh of relief. The weight that had hung over those walls had finally been lifted. Henry gathered the employees again, this time with a softer expression. "I know you've been through difficult times here. I know you've lived under pressure and fear, but I want you to know that it's over. My son is back, and I will ensure he has the happy childhood he deserves. And you, all of you who remained honest and loyal even in the face of circumstances, will always have a place here if you wish to stay." Mrs. Lewis was the first to speak, wiping her tears with her apron. "Of course we want to stay, Master. This house will now be a real home, and we will take care of Mikey as if he were family." The others agreed, and for the first time in a long time there were genuine smiles in that mansion. But it was to Anna that Henry addressed himself next, with special attention. "You," he said, looking into her eyes. "A girl who arrived here, with nothing, who could have simply done her job and left, but who chose to fight for the truth. How can I thank you? How can I repay what you did for me and my son?" Anna swallowed hard, not knowing what to say. She hadn't done it expecting a reward. She had done it because it was right. But at the same time, she couldn't deny that her life was still uncertain, still marked by lack of everything. "Sir, I just did what anyone should do. You don't need to thank me." Henry shook his head. "That's not true. Most people would have looked the other way. They would have chosen safety over justice, but you didn't. And for that, I will do something for you. You will continue to work here, but not as a temporary employee. You will have a permanent position, a decent salary, and more than that, you will have the opportunity to study, to build a future. You deserve that, and much more." Anna felt tears fill her eyes again. For the first time in her life, someone saw her. Someone recognized her worth. She was no longer the invisible girl from the streets. She was someone who had made a difference, someone who mattered. "Thank you, sir," she managed to say, her voice choked. "Thank you for believing in me." And so, on that cold June afternoon in Aspen Heights, as the sun began to set behind the mountains, the truth had finally been revealed. A son had been returned to his father. A lie had been unmasked. And a street girl had proven that courage and honesty are worth more than any power or wealth. The storm had passed, and now it was time to rebuild. And rebuilding on truth was the only way to ensure that the past would never repeat itself. The days that followed that transformative afternoon brought changes Anna Claire could never have imagined possible. The Miller family mansion, which had once been a place of heavy silences and buried secrets, began to truly come alive. The sound of laughter echoed through the corridors, the windows remained open, letting in the fresh mountain air, and Michael, little Michael, could finally be a child. Henry didn't let go of his son for a minute in the first few days. He carried the boy around the house, showing him every room as if introducing a new world, talking to him in that particular language that fathers and babies share. And Michael responded in a way that touched the hearts of everyone who witnessed it. His little eyes that were once dim now sparkled with joy. Laughter came easily, and he had gained weight, color in his face, regaining that characteristic energy of a healthy child. Anna observed everything with a mixture of joy and disbelief. Sometimes she still woke up in the middle of the night thinking it was all a dream, that she would soon wake up again on a cold sidewalk with hunger gnawing at her stomach. But then she looked around, saw the small room that was now hers alone, the clean clothes in the closet, the certainty that there would be food on the table, and allowed herself to believe that her life had truly changed. Henry kept his promise. Anna was no longer a temporary employee. She had been officially hired with a signed contract, a fixed salary, and all the rights she had never known. But more than that, Henry had enrolled her in a private school in Aspen Heights, so she could finish the studies she had abandoned years ago. At first, Anna was afraid of not being able to keep up, afraid of being too different, afraid of not belonging. But Mrs. Lewis encouraged her every day. Mr. Arthur proudly drove her to and from school, and Marcia helped her with homework whenever she could. The nanny, incidentally, had also been transformed by the revealed truth. She no longer carried that weight of guilt and fear on her shoulders. She now cared for Michael with genuine love, without needing to hide anything, without needing to fear reprisals. And the boy adored her, reaching out his little arms when he saw her, calling her with his childish babble. Henry had considerably increased her salary and ensured that her sick mother received all necessary medical treatment. It was his way of thanking her for staying by Michael's side even when she was so afraid. As for Sylvia, the news that arrived was of a destiny she herself had built. She was in prison, awaiting trial, accused of kidnapping, falsifying documents, abuse, and a series of other crimes that the investigations revealed. The story had leaked to the press, of course, a case of that magnitude could not be kept secret. Newspapers carried daily headlines about the woman who had hidden her own stepson out of jealousy, who had created an elaborate farce involving corrupt lawyers and forged documents. The police investigation uncovered the full extent of Sylvia's plan. She had paid an enormous sum to a criminal group involved in kidnappings, offering a fortune in exchange for a specific baby, Henry's son. The plan was for the child to disappear without a trace, but she would have access to him through the kidnappers. Months later, when Henry was completely devastated, she would feign an international adoption, bringing Michael back but as her son, not his. Thus she would have her husband back all to herself, while keeping the child under her absolute control. It was a monstrous plan, born of a mind sick with jealousy and obsession. Henry, when he learned all the details, could hardly believe he had been married to someone capable of such cruelty. Lawyers assured him that Sylvia would receive a long sentence, perhaps decades in prison, and Henry, for his part, had immediately initiated divorce proceedings. He wanted no further connection with the woman who had almost destroyed everything he loved. The town of Aspen Heights, initially shocked by the revelation, soon embraced the story of redemption. Anna became a small local celebrity, although she tried to avoid the spotlight whenever possible. Journalists wanted to interview her. Television programs invited her to tell her story, but she politely refused. She didn't want fame. She just wanted to live her life, study, grow, build a future that just a few months ago seemed impossible. Henry also changed. The man who had come home that June night was broken, hopeless, just a ghost of himself. But the man who now walked through the mansion was completely different. He had started to smile again, to make plans, to believe in tomorrow. Michael had given him not only the joy of having his son back, but also a renewed purpose. He knew now that nothing was more important than family, than true love, than being present for those who matter. One morning, a few months after the dramatic events, Henry called Anna for a chat in his office. She entered nervously, still not completely accustomed to the new dynamic, where she was treated with respect and consideration. He greeted her with a warm smile and asked her to sit down. "Anna, I want to talk to you about the future, your future." She sat on the edge of the armchair, her hands clasped in her lap. "Sir, if it's about work, I promise I'm doing my best. And school is going well, despite some difficulties with math, but the teacher said that—" Henry raised his hand, gently interrupting her. "It's not about that. You're doing wonderful work, and everyone here loves you. I want to talk about what comes next, After school, after you graduate, what do you want to do? What? With your life? What are your dreams? Anna was silent for a moment. No one had ever asked her that. For so long, her only dream had been to survive the next day. But now, with a truly possible future for the first time, she needed to think beyond. "I'd like to help people," she finally said, her voice gaining firmness. "People like me who are on the streets, who are invisible. I want to show that it's possible to change, that an act of kindness can transform an entire life. Maybe work in social assistance or create some kind of project that helps homeless youth have opportunities." Henry smiled, and Anna realized there was genuine pride in that smile. "I imagined you'd say something like that, and I want to help you achieve that dream. I will fund your university studies, whatever course you choose. And when you're ready, we'll create a foundation together, a foundation in Michael's name, dedicated to helping vulnerable children and youth. You will be the director if you wish, because no one understands this reality better than someone who has lived it." Anna felt tears fill her eyes. It was too much. It was more than she deserved, more than she had dreamed. But Henry continued, seeing her emotion. "You gave me my son back, Anna. There's no money in the world that can pay for that. But I can ensure that your courage, your kindness, your refusal to remain silent in the face of injustice serve as an inspiration to others. We can turn this terrible story into something beautiful. We can make a difference in the lives of hundreds, perhaps thousands of young people who are now where you were a few months ago." Anna couldn't speak, she just cried, but they were tears of gratitude, of hope, of a future that finally made sense. Henry stood up, walked around the desk, and placed his hand on her shoulder. "You're no longer that street girl, Anna Claire. You are a hero, and you will be an inspiration to many people. Never doubt your worth." The following months were a period of adaptation and growth. Anna dedicated herself to her studies with fierce determination. She woke up early, went to school, came back, and studied late. Her grades began to improve, and she discovered she had a special talent for writing and humanities. Her teachers praised her ability to understand social complexities, her empathy when discussing difficult topics. It was no surprise, after all. She had lived the statistics that others merely read in books. In the mansion, life had found a happy rhythm. Michael grew quickly, each day bringing new achievements. He started to crawl, then to stand holding onto furniture, and finally took his first wobbly steps under the emotional gaze of everyone. Mr. Arthur filmed everything with his cell phone. Mrs. Lewis prepared special meals to celebrate each milestone. Marcia wrote everything down in a baby journal she had started, to keep. And Anna, whenever she had free time, played with Michael. He recognized her, of course. She had been the first person besides his father to truly see him, to truly care. There was a special bond between them, something everyone in the house noticed and respected. Michael, when he grew up and could understand, would know that he owed his life to a courageous girl who refused to ignore what was wrong. Henry had also changed his professional priorities. He remained a successful businessman, but now he delegated more, worked fewer hours, spent more time at home. He hired a new assistant, a serious and competent woman who kept his schedule organized without ever trying to control his personal life. And on free evenings, he dined with Michael and the staff, who were now more family than employees. The house had transformed into a real home. It was no longer that cold and silent place where everyone walked in fear. It was noisy, sometimes messy, full of life. Mrs. Lewis sang in the kitchen while preparing meals. Mr. Arthur whistled while washing the car. Marcia laughed at Michael's mischief, and Anna studied in the library surrounded by books, dreaming of the future that was now possible. One day, almost a year after that transformative June, Anna was sitting in the mansion garden, enjoying the afternoon sun while reviewing for a test, when Henry approached with Michael in his arms. The boy, now almost 2 years old, was pure energy, spoke a few words, and was always smiling. "Michael, look who's here. It's Anna," Henry said, and the boy immediately stretched his little arms towards her. "Anna," he said in his high-pitched voice, and then repeated, proud of himself, "Anna, Anna." She picked the boy up, feeling her heart overflow with love. That small being whom she had helped save now recognized her, loved her, considered her an important part of his life. Sometimes I still can't believe all this is real, Anna confessed to Henry, who had sat beside her on the garden bench. It is real, he assured her, and you deserve every bit of it. You know, Anna, you taught me something important. You taught me that sometimes the most unlikely people are the ones who make the biggest difference. You had no power, no money, no formal education, but you had something much more valuable. You had heart, you had courage, and you had the refusal to accept injustice as normal. Anna looked at him, then at Michael playing with a strand of her hair, and then at the mansion in the background, at Mrs. Lewis waving from the kitchen window, at Mr. Arthur polishing the car with dedication. I was very lucky, she said, lucky to be in the right place at the right time, to meet good people, to have been given this chance. Henry shook his head. It wasn't luck. It was destiny. And you were brave enough to follow your instinct, even when it would have been easier to look the other way. That's not luck. That's character. That night, after Michael had been put to bed, the household gathered for a special dinner. Henry had announced that he wanted to officially celebrate the one-year anniversary of Michael's return. Not his birth anniversary, but the anniversary of the day he had been found again. Mrs. Lewis prepared a feast. Mr. Arthur decorated the dining room. Marcia made a beautiful teddy bear-shaped cake. And when everyone was gathered around the table, Henry stood up with a glass in his hand. I want to make a toast. First, to my son Michael, who survived an ordeal no child should ever go through and who, despite everything, is now a happy and healthy boy. Second, to all of you, who kept this house running even in the darkest moments and who have now transformed it into a true home. And especially, he looked directly at Anna, to this extraordinary young woman who came to us with nothing but gave us everything. Anna Claire, you are living proof that kindness and courage can change the world. Thank you for not giving up on the truth. Thank you for saving my son. Thank you for teaching us the true meaning of family. Everyone raised their glasses, their eyes shining with emotion. Anna, tears streaming down her face, looked around the table and realized something profound. She no longer just had a job or a place to live. She had a family she had chosen, fought to protect, and who now welcomed her as one of their own. After dinner, when everyone had retired, Anna went upstairs to check on Michael one last time before going to sleep. He was in his crib, sleeping soundly, a peaceful smile on his little face. She gently touched his cheek and whispered, "You will grow up knowing you are loved, Mikey. You will have everything I never had. And when you're old enough to understand, I will tell you this story. I will tell you how destiny brought us together, how truth always wins in the end, and how love is the only thing that truly matters." The boy stirred slightly, as if he had heard, and then went back to sleep. Anna left the room with a peaceful heart. Her journey had begun on the cold streets of Aspen Heights, marked by hunger and invisibility, but it had transformed into a story of courage, justice, and redemption. And best of all, this story was just beginning. Ahead, there were studies to complete, a foundation to create, lives to transform. She was no longer the invisible girl. She was Anna Claire, the young woman who had proven that a person, however unlikely, can make all the difference in the world. And while the mansion slept under the starry mountain sky, there was peace, a peace earned with courage, built on truth and sustained by love, the kind of peace that only comes when we do what is right, even when it's difficult, the kind of peace that transforms houses into homes and strangers into family, the kind of peace that makes life, despite all its difficulties, truly beautiful. 2 years had passed since that transformative day when the truth finally came to light. Anna Claire, now 18, was unrecognizable from the frightened girl who once begged for coins at the traffic lights in Aspen Heights. She had graduated high school with honors, even receiving a special mention for her essay on social inequality and second chances. The graduation ceremony had been a momentous occasion, with Henry, Mrs. Lewis, Mr. Arthur, and Marcia sitting in the front row, proudly applauding when her name was called. Michael, now almost 3 years old, was a vibrant child full of personality. He talked incessantly, ran through the mansion leaving a trail of toys and laughter, and had a special bond with Anna that only grew with time. He called her Anna, but the way he said it carried so much affection that it sounded almost like a title of nobility. To him, Anna wasn't just someone who worked in the house. She was his personal hero, his friend, his confidant in moments when he needed a hug after a fall or a story before bedtime. The promise Henry had made was beginning to materialize. In recent months, he and Anna had worked together to create the Michael Miller Foundation, a non-profit organization dedicated to helping children and youth in situations of social vulnerability. The project was in the final stages of structuring, with a building being renovated in downtown Aspen Heights to serve as its headquarters, a team being hired and programs being designed to offer education, vocational training, psychological support, and temporary housing. Anna would be the social projects coordinator, a position created specifically for her. Henry had insisted that, despite her young age, no one was more qualified than she to understand the real needs of those living on the streets. He would handle the administrative and financial aspects, but the soul of the foundation, the programs that would truly make a difference in people's lives, would come from Anna's experience and sensitivity. On a sunny October morning, Anna was in the mansion's office reviewing the foundation's final documents when the phone rang. It was Helen Carter, the lawyer who was handling all the legal aspects of the project. Her voice sounded excited. "Anna, we did it. The final approval came through. The Michael Miller Foundation is officially registered and can begin operations. Congratulations." Anna felt a wave of emotion wash over her. It was 2 years of planning, meetings, learning about laws, management, how to turn dreams into concrete reality. And now, it was really happening. "Thank you, Helen. Thank you for everything. I can't wait to tell Henry." She hung up the phone and ran to find Henry, who was in the garden playing with Michael. The boy was riding on his father's back, excitedly shouting that he was a cowboy chasing bandits. When they saw Anna running towards them, both stopped. "We did it!" Anna shouted, unable to contain her joy. "The foundation is approved. We can start." Henry carefully put Michael down and broke into a huge smile. He took Anna's hands and spun her around, celebrating as if they had won the lottery. Michael, not fully understanding what was happening, but infected by the joy, jumped around the two, shouting too. "This needs to be celebrated," Henry declared. "Tonight's special dinner, I'm going to invite all our friends, the team working on the project, and we'll toast to the beginning of something that will change many lives." The celebration that night was memorable. The mansion filled with people, from the staff who were now practically family, to architects, social workers, educators, and partners who had embarked on the foundation's project. Mrs. Lewis outdid herself in the kitchen, preparing a feast worthy of the occasion. Mr. Arthur served as an informal master of ceremonies, ensuring everyone was comfortable and their glasses full. During dinner, Henry asked for attention and gave a speech that touched the hearts of everyone present. 2 years ago, my life was shattered. I had lost my son, or so I believed, and along with him, I had lost my faith in humanity, my hope for the future. But then something extraordinary happened. A young woman who had nothing, whom society had forgotten and ignored, showed more courage and kindness than many people with all the resources in the world would demonstrate in a lifetime. Anna Claire not only gave me back my son, she gave me back my faith. She showed me that a person's character has nothing to do with their bank account or their address. And now together, we will ensure that other people have the same opportunities that I gave her. We will show that a second chance can transform a life. We will prove that investing in people, believing in people, is always the best choice. Applause echoed through the room, and Anna, emotional, also stood up to speak. At first her voice trembled, but it soon gained firmness. "I spent years being invisible, years thinking that my life didn't matter, that no one would care if I simply disappeared. But Henry taught me that every life has value, that every person deserves dignity and opportunities. The Michael Miller Foundation is not just a project, it is a promise to every child sleeping on the street today, to every young person who thinks they have no future. We will be there. We will show that there is hope, that there is a way out, that no one is alone, and we will do it with love, with respect, and with the certainty that we are building a better world. The celebration extended late into the night, with lively conversations about future plans, about how to reach more people, about possible partnerships. But the most touching moment of the night happened when everyone had left and only the household family remained gathered in the living room. Michael, who should have been asleep for hours but had been allowed to stay awake for being a special occasion, climbed onto Anna's lap and looked at her with those big, curious eyes. "Anna, will you take care of the kids who don't have homes?" Anna hugged the boy affectionately. "Yes, Mikey. I will do for them what your daddy did for me. I will show them that they matter." "And can I help?" Michael asked with childish sincerity. "Can I give them my toys?" Anna felt her eyes fill with tears. Even so small, Michael already showed an empathy and generosity that were rare. Henry, observing the scene, was also moved. "Of course you can, son," he replied. "When you grow a little older, you can even visit the foundation with Anna and see how she's helping people. And who knows, someday you might even work there, continuing this legacy." The following weeks were filled with intense work. The foundation's building was inaugurated in a simple but meaningful ceremony. It was a spacious area, with classrooms, workshops for vocational courses, a library, offices for psychological care, and a small hostel with capacity to temporarily house 20 young people. Everything had been carefully thought out, listening to specialists, but also and primarily listening to Anna's experience about what truly made a difference. The first group of young people arrived on a November afternoon. There were 15 boys and girls between 14 and 18 years old, all from the streets of Aspen Heights and neighboring towns. They arrived distrustful, accustomed to empty promises and institutions that treated them as numbers or problems to be managed. But they soon realized that this place was different. Anna received them personally, talked to each one, listened to their stories. She recognized herself in every distrustful gaze, in every defensive posture. And precisely for that reason, she knew exactly how to approach them, how to gain their trust, how to show them that this place was safe, and that no one there would be judged. "I know what it's like," she said during the first meeting with the group. "I know what it's like to be hungry, cold, afraid. I know what it's like to be ignored, to be treated as if you don't exist. And I know what it's like to think there's no way out, that your life will always be this way. But I'm here to tell you that there is a way out. It won't be easy, it won't happen overnight, but it is possible. I am living proof of that." One of the girls, Beatrice, 16, timidly raised her hand. "What if we fail? What if we can't do it? Do we go back to the streets again?" Anna looked into her eyes with sincerity. "Here, no one is considered a failure. Here we understand that each person has their own time, their own difficulties. If you stumble, we help you get up. If you need more time, you have it. The only thing we ask is that you try, that you give yourself a chance, because you deserve it." The tears that streamed down Beatrice's face at that moment were the beginning of her transformation. And she wasn't the only one. Each of those young people carried stories of abandonment, abuse, neglect. But there, for the first time, they were being seen, heard, valued. The foundation's programs were comprehensive. In the mornings, regular classes for those who needed to complete their studies. In the afternoons, vocational training workshops in areas such as carpentry, sewing, cooking, computer skills. In the evenings, psychological support groups and leisure time, with movies, games, music. And throughout, a dedicated team of educators, social workers, and psychologists accompanied each young person individually, understanding their specific needs and adjusting programs as necessary. Anna was involved in everything. She arrived early, left late, knew each young person by name, knew their stories, their fears, their dreams. Henry watched her with admiration, seeing how she had transformed into a natural leader, someone capable of inspiring real change in people's lives. But not everything was rosy. There were difficult moments. One of the young men, Raphael, 17, ran away from the foundation in the second month, returning to the streets. Anna was devastated, feeling she had failed. But Henry consoled her, reminding her that they couldn't save everyone, that each person had to make their own choices. 2 weeks later, Raphael returned. He was thinner, dirtier, but there was something different in his eyes. He asked for a second chance, and of course he was welcomed. This time he was ready to truly try. Stories like Raphael's were rare. Most of the young people who entered the foundation remained and flourished. Beatrice, the girl who had asked about failure on that first day, discovered a talent for sewing and was being prepared for an internship at a boutique in the city. Charles, a 15-year-old boy who could barely read when he arrived, now devoured books and dreamed of going to college for history. Jessica, who was terrified of trusting adults due to past abuse, was finally opening up in therapy sessions and beginning to believe she deserved to be happy. Every small achievement was celebrated, every progress was recognized, and slowly but consistently, lives were being transformed. News of the Michael Miller Foundation's work began to spread. Other cities expressed interest in replicating the model. Business owners offered partnerships and donations. The media began to cover the success stories, showing America that it was possible to make a difference in the lives of vulnerable youth when there was real commitment and adequate resources. One afternoon, Anna was in the Foundation's office reviewing reports when she received an unexpected call. It was from the Department of Social Development in Washington, D.C. They had been following the work of the Michael Miller Foundation and wanted to invite her to join a national working group that was developing public policies for homeless children and adolescents. They needed someone with practical experience, someone who knew the reality firsthand, not just through numbers and reports. Anna was speechless. It was an opportunity to expand the impact of her work beyond Aspen Heights, even beyond the state of New York. She could influence policies that would affect thousands, perhaps millions of young people across the United States. But it also meant frequent trips to Washington, D.C., less time at the foundation, less time with the people she loved. She asked for time to think and went to talk to Henry. He was in his home office reviewing contracts when she entered, visibly nervous. She told him about the invitation, about the opportunity, but also about her fears and doubts. Henry listened to her carefully and then smiled in that paternal way he always had when talking to her. "Anna, you've already built something incredible here. The foundation is solid. It has an excellent team. It has established processes. It won't crumble because you'll spend a few days a month in Washington, D.C. In fact, I think that's exactly what you've worked so hard for your voice, the voice of someone who truly understands this reality, to reach the places where decisions are made. You have to accept." "But what if I fail? What if I don't know how to speak their language, if I can't make a difference at that level?" Henry stood up and placed his hands on her shoulders. "Anna Claire, you transformed your own life when everyone said it was impossible. You saved my son when no one else was looking. You created a foundation that changed hundreds of lives. Do you really think you won't be able to talk to politicians and bureaucrats? They need you much more than you need them. Go, make your voice heard, make a difference on an even larger scale." Henry's words echoed in Anna for the following days. She talked to the foundation's team, who unanimously supported her. She talked to the young people themselves, and it was Beatrice, now 20 years old and working as a professional seamstress, who said something that completely convinced her. "Anna, you taught me that when we have a chance to help, we have an obligation to try. You have that chance now. You have the chance to help not only the young people who are here, but those who are everywhere in America. How can you not try?" Anna accepted the invitation. In the following months, she balanced her routine between Aspen Heights and Washington, D.C. The meetings in the capital were intense, with heated debates about budgets, methodologies, different approaches to the same problem. At first, Anna felt intimidated, surrounded by people with doctorates with entire careers dedicated to public administration. But she soon realized that Henry was right. She had something none of them had: lived experience. When a secretary suggested a tougher police enforcement policy to get young people off the streets, Anna counter-argued with the reality of someone who had run from the police, explaining that fear did not build trust, that violence did not create change. When a consultant proposed standardized institutional shelters, Anna explained that homeless youth needed individualization, to be seen as unique people, not as numbers in a statistic. Her voice gained respect. The other members of the group began to seek her out, to validate ideas, to understand nuances that only those who have lived can grasp. And slowly, the policies being developed began to incorporate the lessons Anna had learned in practice. Welcoming centers instead of impersonal shelters. A focus on real vocational training, not generic courses. Systematic psychological support, respect for the individuality and pace of each young person. Amidst all this work in Washington, D.C., Anna never failed to return to Aspen Heights whenever possible. The foundation remained her heart, and Michael remained her inspiration. The boy had grown so much, physically and emotionally. He could now read perfectly, wrote letters to Anna when she was traveling, and had a sense of social justice that impressed everyone. During one of these visits to Washington, D.C., during a break from meetings, Anna was having coffee when she was approached by a woman she didn't know. She was an elderly lady with gray hair, kind eyes, and simple clothes. She approached shyly and touched Anna's arm. "Excuse me, are you Anna Clare, from the Michael Miller Foundation?" Anna confirmed, curious about who this woman might be. And then she heard a story she would never forget. The lady's name was Irene, and she lived in a small town in rural Georgia. Her granddaughter, Sophia, was 15 and had been living on the streets for 6 months after fleeing a complicated family situation. Irene was desperate, not knowing how to help, without resources to admit her to any institution. Then she saw the documentary about the Michael Miller Foundation on television. She saw Anna's story, saw young people being transformed, and felt hope for the first time. She gathered all her savings, took a bus that traveled for 2 full days and came to Washington, D.C., because she knew Anna would be there. "Please," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. "I have no money, I have nothing, but my granddaughter needs help. She's a good girl, she's just lost. If you can do something, anything." Anna felt her heart ache. The pain of that grandmother was palpable, and Sophia's situation echoed her own story. She took Irene's hands and promised she would do what she could. She spent the rest of the day making calls, contacting people, until she secured a spot for Sophia at a partner institution in Savannah, closer to her grandmother's town. It wasn't the Michael Miller Foundation, but it was a reputable place that followed similar methodologies. When Irene heard the news, she broke down in tears of gratitude. She hugged Anna so tightly that she almost took her breath away, repeating incessant thanks that came from the depths of her soul. That moment profoundly affected Anna. She realized that her work in Washington, D.C. wasn't just about abstract policies. It was about Irene's and Sophia's, about families who needed hope, about young people who deserved second chances. She returned to the meetings with renewed determination. She fought more fiercely for larger budgets. She argued with more passion for the urgent implementation of programs, and her persistence began to bear fruit. A pilot project was approved, with federal resources allocated to create 5 foundations modeled after the Michael Miller Foundation in different states. Anna would be a consultant for the project, helping to train the teams, establish the programs, and ensure that the essence of the work, the humanized and individualized approach, was preserved. When she returned to Aspen Heights with this news, the celebration was immediate. Henry opened champagne. Paula prepared a special dinner. Michael made a poster with crooked letters saying, "Congratulations, Anna, you are awesome." The entire foundation team was invited to the mansion, and the night was one of genuine and deserved joy. But it was Mr. Arthur, always observant and wise, who said something that would be etched in Anna's memory. "Girl, do you know what you're doing? You're multiplying love. You're taking the kindness you received and spreading it across the entire United States. That's the greatest legacy anyone can leave." The old driver's words struck deep. Anna realized he was right. Her journey wasn't just about her or about the Michael Miller Foundation, or even about the young people they directly served. It was about creating a movement, a cultural shift in how society viewed and treated vulnerable people. The following months were intense. Anna traveled to the 5 states where the new foundations were being created. She met dedicated teams, young people who needed help, entire communities mobilized to make a difference. In Miami, she met Charles, a social educator who had worked with street children for 20 years and was moved to see his practices valued and systematized. In Seattle, she met Juliana, a former homeless person who would now be the coordinator of one of the new foundations, following in Anna's footsteps. In New Orleans, in Denver, in Austin, story after story of dedicated people, of young people with potential, of communities that were willing to help when they had the right tools. Each visit reinforced Anna's certainty that she was on the right path. But it also made her miss home, the routine in Aspen Heights, the young people she knew by name, Michael asking for stories before bedtime. Life for someone who wants to change the world, she thought, is not easy. But it is necessary. It was during one of these trips on a sleepless night in Miami that Anna decided to write a book. It would be her story, from the cold streets to the corridors of Washington, D.C., but it would also be a practical manual, a guide for others who wanted to create similar initiatives. It would be her way of further multiplying the impact, of reaching people she would never meet personally. She spent months writing, revising, perfecting. Henry helped her find a publisher, and a year later, the book was on shelves. It was called Invisible No More, Lights of Hope, and told not only Anna's story, but also those of several young people who had passed through the foundation, their transformations, their struggles, their victories. The book became an unexpected success. It was adopted by universities in social work courses, read by legislators, public managers, families who had loved ones living on the streets. Speaking engagements began to emerge. Schools wanted Anna to talk to their students about empathy and social responsibility. Companies wanted to understand how they could contribute effectively to social causes. NGOs wanted to learn from the Foundation's methodology. Anna accepted what she could, always trying to balance it with her work in Washington, D.C. and at the Foundation. It was at one of these lectures at a university in New York City that something emotional happened. After speaking for almost 2 hours to a crowded auditorium of students, answering questions, sharing stories, a young woman approached her. She was about 20 years old, with short hair and red, teary eyes. "Anna, I just wanted to thank you. 3 years ago, I was on the street. I had nowhere to go, no one who cared. And then I was taken to the Michael Miller Foundation. There I found people who saw me as a human being, not as a problem. They gave me education, therapy, affection. Today I am here in my 3rd year of psychology on a full scholarship, and I want to work with homeless youth. I want to be for other people what you and your team were for me." Anna hugged the young woman, and they both cried together. That was the true meaning of everything, not public policies, not the book, not fame. It was that. It was seeing lives transformed, seeing people finding their purpose, seeing the chain of love and hope perpetuating itself. Returning to Aspen Heights after that lecture, Anna sat in the mansion garden, looking at the stars. Michael, who should have been asleep, appeared in his pajamas and sat beside her. "Why are you crying, Anna?" She wiped her tears and smiled at the boy. "They're happy tears, Mikey, very happy." "Because of work?" "Because of everything. Because of you, your family, the young people at the Foundation, all the people we are managing to help. Sometimes I stop and think about how different my life could have been, and I'm amazed at how much it has changed." Michael was thoughtful for a moment, swinging his little legs on the garden bench. "You know what my dad says, that you saved us, you saved me and you saved him, and now you're saving a lot of other people too." Anna hugged the boy affectionately. "It wasn't just me, Michael. Your dad saved me too, and you, just by existing, give me reasons to keep fighting every day. We are a team. When I grow up, I'm going to work at the Foundation with you." Anna laughed, imagining that energetic boy helping other young people. "It will be an honor to work with you, Mikey." Years continued to pass, and the Michael Miller Foundation became an international benchmark. Delegations from other countries visited to understand the methodology. Awards were received, but for Anna, the real prize was always the stories of transformation. Every young person who left the Foundation and built a dignified life was a victory. Every reunited family was a celebration. Every tear of gratitude was confirmation that she was on the right path. Henry and Paula had 2 more children, twins named Laura and Peter, and the mansion became even more full of life. Michael became a dedicated older brother, teaching the little ones the importance of helping others, of not judging, of always reaching out. And Anna, who was once an invisible girl on the cold streets of Aspen Heights, was now one of the most respected voices in the United States when it came to policies for vulnerable youth. But she never lost her essence, her humility, her ability to connect with every person she met. One night, now 25 years old, Anna was tidying old boxes in her room when she found a torn piece of cardboard. It was from her days on the street, a piece she used as a pillow when she managed to sleep somewhere, sheltered from the wind. She held that piece of cardboard, feeling the entire journey she had traveled, and murmured to herself, "Thank you. Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for having the courage to knock on that door. Thank you for choosing the truth when it would have been easier to stay silent." She placed the cardboard in a special box, along with the photograph she had found in the storage room, with her first course completion certificate, with newspaper articles about the foundation. These were memories of an improbable journey, of a transformation that seemed impossible, and they would serve as a reminder, on the difficult days that would certainly still come, that no obstacle is too great when you have courage, purpose, and people who believe in you. The story of Anna Claire, the invisible girl who became light, was far from over. But it had already taught the world a powerful lesson. Every life matters, every person deserves dignity, and a single act of kindness can create waves of transformation that reach far beyond what we can imagine.